student. Welcome to Massive Open online course on Indian economy. Today I am going to discuss the module entitled The Achievements of Sustainable Development Goals of India compared to other countries of the world. After completing this module, you are able to know the performance of Sustainable Development Goals of India as well as the performance of India by different sustainable goals in comparison with other countries of the world. And finally, this module also help you to know the sustainable development goals scores to understand the relative position of the India along with other countries among the world. The module consists with 5 sections. Section 1 introduces the theme, whereas Section 1 is the performance of Sustainable Development Goals of India. Section 3 deals with the relative position of different countries in respect of the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals, whereas Section 4 describes the relative position of Sustainable Development Goals score, that is the relative ranking of different countries on the basis of SDG Index score. And finally, Section 5 makes some concluding observations. The Sustainable Development Goals was adopted by United Nations in the year 2015 to achieve a number of targets by 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals are also treated as the global goals because all the countries of the United Nations adopted this goal and they have committed to achieve this goal by 2030. And these Sustainable Development Goals is development compared to the Millennium Development Goal. In case of Millennium Development Goal, the number of targets were 8, which increased to 17 in case of Sustainable Development Goals. Side by side, in case of Millennium Development Goals, the number of countries are only developing countries, but in case of Sustainable Development Goals, all countries, developing as well as developed, less developed, all countries are the member of the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. Therefore, the coverage of the Sustainable Development Goals are higher compared to the coverages of the Millennium Development Goals. In the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals of the world, India is a very crucial country because 1/5 of the total population are living in our country. Therefore, success of the India in respect of the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals is significantly related with the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals of the world. Now we look into the present status of the Sustainable Development Goals of India. Out of 163 countries, the position of India is 121st. 121th position is the India compared to 163 countries, and its Sustainable Development Goal score increased from 56.41 in 2015 to 60.3 in 2021. That is, the position of India is not relatively good. Its position is 121st out of 163 countries. To understand the present status of the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, United Nations has been classified the performance of the different Sustainable Development Goals into 5 categories. These categories are SDG achieved, challenges remain, significant challenges remain, major challenges remain, and information unavailable. Now we explain the relative position of 17 Sustainable Development Goals in respect of these 5 categories. If we consider 2 important categories, say Sustainable Development Goal 12 and Sustainable Development Goal 13, then in these 2 Sustainable Development Goals out of 17, India managed to achieve the target. That is, India managed to achieve the target of the Sustainable Development Goals 12 and Sustainable Development Goals 13. Whereas in case of SDG 4, which is the quality of education, challenges remain. But in case of 3 Sustainable Development Goals like SDG 1, which is related with no poverty, SDG 7, which is related with affordable and clean energy, and SDG 10, which is related with reduced inequality, in these 3 Sustainable Development Goals, significant challenges remain for India. This figure help us to understand the relative position of different sustainable development goals. It is developed by United Nations to understand the relative position or status of the achievement of the sustainable development goals of India across different sustainable development goals indicators. Here the green colored icon, which is that is sustainable development goals goal 12 and sustainable development goal 13. These two goals are related with the SDG achievement. India has already achieved the SDG in these two goals, whereas in case of goal 4, which is yellow in color, challenges remain. In case of goal 3, Sustainable Development Goals, say SDG 1, SDG 7 and SDG 10, the significant challenges remain, and the rest of 11 Sustainable Development Goals, which are highlighted here by the red colored, significant challenges or major challenges remain in these 11 Sustainable Development Goals to achieve their target. These goals are SDG 2, which is related to zero hunger, SDG 3, which is related with good health and well-being. Side by side, other goals like SDG 5, SDG 6, SDG 8, SDG 9, SDG 11, SDG 14, SDG 15, 16 and 17. These 11 goals are designated as major challenges remain to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Along with the present status of the Sustainable Development Goals, United Nations also classified the Sustainable Development Goals in respect of the trend of the Sustainable Development Goals scores, and they have classified it into the 5 categories. These categories are maintaining SDG achievement, moderately improving, stagnating and decreasing, and finally the 5th one is the information, the category where information are not available. In case of category 1, that is maintaining SDG achievement, here the progress of the Sustainable Development Goal score for a particular target is as required as to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, or the countries have already achieved the Sustainable Development Goals. Whereas in case of moderately improving category, the trend of the Sustainable Development Goal score is more than 50% compared to the required growth rate of the Sustainable Development Goals. In case of stagnating category, the trend is or the growth of the Sustainable Development Goal score is less than 50%, or the score is remaining stagnating year after year. Side by side, in case of decreasing category, the SDG score is gradually decreasing year after year. And the another category which is related with the information unavailable, trend information unavailable. In case of India, this is the status of the trend of the Sustainable Development Goals across 17 countries. The arrow help us to understand the status of the trend. The up arrow, which are green in color, this implies that the growth rate is significantly higher, and India is able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal in these two target. The growth rate is sufficient to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals for goal 12 and for goal 13. Whereas the upward arrow, which are in the yellow color, this indicates that the growth is there, but the growth is not 100%, it is less than 100%, but more than 50% to achieve the sustainable development goals. Whereas the arrow sign, which is parallel to the horizontal axis and red in color, that is for SDG 2, SDG 4, SDG 6, as well as SDG 14, SDG 15, SDG 16 and SDG 17. The nature of the trend is stagnating, that is over time the growth rate is relatively low, lower than the 50% of the targeted growth rate, or the relative score or the score of a sustainable development goals not increased year after year. Therefore, these 7 categories are treated as the stagnating categories, where the growth of the SDG scores are relatively less. Now we discuss the performance of different sustainable development goals across different indicators. This analysis help us to understand the relative position of different countries in respect of the status of the achievement of the sustainable development goals. With the help of the interactive map of sustainable development goals developed by United Nations, we can able to illustrate the relative position of different countries in respect of the achievement of different sustainable development goals. This link help us to understand the different status of the sustainable development goals across different countries with the help of the interactive map. Now we go to the interactive map to analyze the differential status of the achievement of the sustainable development goals. In case of, this is the world scenario, all countries are there. In case of SDG 1, which is related with no poverty, this is the actual scenario regarding the achievement of the sustainable development goals. The green color countries or region are already achieved the sustainable development goals 1. Here the countries or region like Russian Federation, China, Kazakhstan, Denmark, side by side a number of European countries like France, Germany, Poland, Sweden, Norway, Finland, they have already achieved the sustainable development goals 1. Whereas the yellow colored means challenges remain, the growth rate is relatively high, but some challenges are remain to achieve the sustainable development goals. Here Canada, the position of the Canada is related with the challenges remain. Similarly, the countries like Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, as well as Australia, here is Afghanistan and Algeria. For all these countries, challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals 1. In case of India, which is colored in orange, here the significant challenges remain. Along with this India, in this category the other countries are United States, Mexico, Colombia, Mauritania, etc. Side by side, the least category is the which are marked in the red color, where the major challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals in this particular target. Here most of the African countries are in the red color, therefore for them major challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals. If we consider another sustainable development goals, that is SDG 2, which is related with no hunger, then the striking features is that no country is able to achieve the sustainable development goals in this particular dimension in this particular indicators. But the relative position is relatively better for the China. In case of China, the challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals, but significant challenges remain for Russian Federation, for Canada, for Brazil, for Peru, and for Bolivia. Side by side, other European countries. But major challenges remain in case of India, all African countries, Australia, United States, Mexico, Argentina, and other countries, along with Denmark. That is, in this category, some developed countries are also there. That is, some developed countries are also not able to achieve the sustainable development goals too. It is the serious concern, and this goal is related with zero hunger or no hunger. That is, a number of countries are not able to achieve the sustainable development goals in respect of the no hunger or zero hunger. Similarly, if you consider other two indicators where India has already achieved the sustainable development goals, like SDG 12 and SDG 13, this is the scenario of the SDG 12. Here the green colored countries have already achieved the sustainable development goals, and these countries are like India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, a number of African countries. That is, all are the relatively developing or less developed countries, but they are able to achieve the sustainable development goals in respect of SDG 12. But the developed countries like Australia, Denmark, Canada, they are not able to achieve the sustainable development goals in this particular indicator, and for them major challenges remain. Even in case of Russian Federation and in case of Kazakhstan, the significant challenges remain, as well as for the Canada. Significant challenges also remain for the Canada to achieve the SDG 12. Similar situation we can see in case of SDG 13, in case of Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is related with the climate action. That is, in case of climate action, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, along with a number of less developed countries of Africa, they are in the better position. But in respect of the climate action, the developed countries are in the red color. That is, major challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals in respect of the sustainable development goal climate action. And here for Russian Federation, Canada, United States, even Denmark, and all developed countries of the European Union, for them major challenges remain to achieve the sustainable development goals. In this group, Australia is also the country for whom major challenges also remain to achieve the sustainable development goals. Similarly, we can understand the relative position of different countries in respect of the achievement of the sustainable development goals with the use of this interactive map. In section 4, which deals with the SDG index score across different countries of the world. This is the aggregate score. This is the aggregation of 17 sustainable development goals. And this aggregate score help us the relative position of different countries in the relative scale of the measurement of SDG index score. And out of 163 countries, the position is relatively better, or in the top position countries is Finland, followed by 3 countries, that is Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, where the SDG index scores are relatively high for these 4 countries. Not only that, these 4 countries are also treated as the happiest countries by the World Happiness Report. If you consider Human Development Index (HDI), then by the HDI measurement, these 4 countries are also the top 4 countries in respect of the Human Development Index report. and therefore these countries are relatively developed, and they have occupied the top 4 position in the SDG index score. Along with the some European countries, they are also in relatively better position, and out of top 10 countries, 8 countries are belonging in the European Union. They are the relatively developed countries, but the SDG index score of the less developed countries are relatively less. This table help us to understand the SDG index score side by side, the relative position of different countries that can be understood by their ranking. As I have discussed here, the Finland occupied the first position, and its score is maximum 86.5, and here the SDG index score varied from 0 to 100, therefore it is very near to 100, 86.5. The SDG score of Denmark, Sweden and Norway is also very closer to the top country Finland. The score of Denmark is 85.6, Sweden is 85.2, and Norway is 82.3. Similarly, the score of Australia is also relatively high, 82.2, and some other European countries, they have also experienced relatively higher score in respect of the SDG index, and they have already occupied the top 10 position in the SDG ranking of 163 countries. Here the position of India is 121, and its SDG score is 60.3. That is, position of India is not good, and its score is only 60.3, remaining nearly the 40 or 39.7 to achieve the full sustainable development goals by 2030. And in this ranking, the bottom countries are Chad, Somalia, Sudan, etc. For them, the sustainable development goal score are relatively less. Now we come to the trend of the sustainable development goals score over time. That is, what is the trend of SDG during 2015 to 2021. Not only that, this particular graph help us to understand the long run trend of aggregate SDG score for different countries starting from 2000 to 2021. Among these countries, here the position of Germany is relatively better, then France, United Kingdom, Japan, Italy, Korea, Canada. For these countries, the trend is relatively high, that is, the growth of SDG is relatively high, whereas among these number of countries, the growth of India is relatively low, and even the growth of SDG score is relatively higher for South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Mexico, Turkey, China compared to India. Therefore, the growth of SDG index score for India is lagging behind in respect of a number of developing or less developed countries. Now, if you consider the relative trend of India by its SDG score among the East and South Asian countries. These are the list of the East and South Asian countries. Among the East and South Asian countries, if you consider the trend of the SDG score, then here the bottom position is Pakistan, and India is also relatively lower position. And among the East and South Asian countries, the trend is relatively higher for the Thailand, Vietnam, China, Singapore, Maldives, even Bhutan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bangladesh. They have witnessed relatively higher growth of SDG index score compared to the India. That is, we have discussed the performance of the sustainable development goals of India as well as the performance of the sustainable development goals across different countries of the world. if we consider the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, then in a number of SDG, a number of Sustainable Development Goals, different countries have already faced the major challenges or significant challenges to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. In case of India, India has already achieved Sustainable Development Goals in two indicators, in two Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs 12 and SDG 13. But in 11 Sustainable Development Goals out of 17, major challenges remain to achieve the SDGs in score by 2030. This is a huge task for India. A effective socio-economic measure or social protection measure as well as policy implementation, effective policy implementation can able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Therefore, we can look forward by 2030 India can able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Otherwise, the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals of world is also not possible, because 1/6 of the world population are living in our country.